Today is our second of 10 spotlights on Black composers and musicians. Last month we featured the composer Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Today we shine our spotlight on the African-American composer, organist, pianist, and music educator Florence B. Price. Florence was born in Little Rock, Arkansas on April 9, 1887 to dentist James H. Smith and businesswoman and teacher Florence Gulliver Smith, who provided musical instruction for her daughter Florence. Florence's musical gifts were apparent very early in her life. She began performing at the age of 4 and published her first composition at age 11. After graduating as valedictorian of her high school class in 1902, Florence enrolled at the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston, one of the few conservatories at the time that admitted African American students. By age 19, Florence had received 2 music degrees from the conservatory. At the urging of her mentor and conservatory teacher, George Whitefield Chadwick, Florence began to incorporate elements of African American spirituals into her compositions, especially the rhythmic syncopation that characterizes many spirituals. Her melodies contained influences of both European Romantic music and the blues. This blending of European and African musical traditions would come to define much of Florence Price's music. In her lifetime, Price composed more than 300 works, ranging from small teaching pieces for the piano to large-scale symphonies and concertos, instrumental chamber music, choral works, and art songs. After college, Florence returned to her home state of Arkansas, where she would spend the next 2 decades. She married lawyer Thomas Price, with whom she had 2 daughters. Her early adulthood was devoted largely to teaching and raising her family. The American South was firmly in the grip of the Jim Crow era. As racial tensions grew in Little Rock, resulting in a horrific lynching in 1927, the Price family decided to move to Chicago. There, Florence found a vibrant community of African American musicians and composers. Price blossomed as a composer. Her first symphony in E minor won a composing prize and was later premiered by the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in 1933, marking the first time that a major American orchestra played music by an African American woman. Price's art songs and spiritual arrangements were frequently performed by well-known artists of the day. In 1939, the great contralto Marian Anderson featured Florence's spiritual arrangement, My Soul's Been Anchored, in her famous Easter Sunday performance on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. While Florence's career was surely limited by the discrimination she faced both as a woman and as a person of color, that discrimination continued after her untimely death in 1953, preventing much of her music from ever being heard for over half a century. But then in 2009, a twist. Vicki and Daryl Gatwood of St. Anne, Illinois, were preparing to renovate an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. It was there that they made a curious discovery: piles of musical manuscripts, books, personal papers, and other documents. It turned out that this rundown house had once been the summer home of Florence Price. Inside was a treasure trove of over 30 boxes of music, dozens of compositions by Florence Price, which up to that point historians had thought were lost forever. The discovery seemed to ignite a renewed interest in Price's music. In 2018, she was inducted into the Arkansas Women's Hall of Fame. In August 2020, the International Florence Price Festival held its inaugural gathering celebrating Price's music and legacy. Librarians and scholars continue to pore over those 30 boxes of musical gems. Clearly, Florence Price's story is far from over.